Hi dear subscribers, in this last episode from the DYATLOV past tragedy, we will see the principal hypothesis that tries to explain what happened that night in the woods. Doroshenko, an engineering student and experienced cross-country skier, was found wearing only his underwear. The coroner later determined that he had died of hypothermia. The search party had assumed as much, but they also noted that the branches of a nearby tree had all been broken off. The broken branches stretched more than 16 feet up the trunk of the tree. Had Doroshenko broken them off? Or was it something else? Doroshenko and his companion, Krivonischenko, also had matching burns on the palms of their hands. As the search continued, more bodies were uncovered in the snow. The group's leader, Igor Dyatlov, was the next to be discovered, along with Rustam Slobodin and Zinaida Kolmogorova. These three were found a little closer to the tent than Doroshenko and Krivonischenko. In the picture above, you can see Zinaida Kolmogorova, who was 22 years old at the time of her death. She and her companions, Slobodin and Dyatlov, also succumbed to hypothermia. Though he still deemed hypothermia to be Rustam Slobodin's cause of death, the coroner noted that he had a small crack in his skull. This, the broken tree branches, and other injuries sustained by the hikers suggested something sinister may have occurred. As for the other 4 crew members, their bodies were not found until months later, when the deep winter snow had melted. They were in a far worse state than the first 5, which only served to deepen the mystery. During the spring of 1959, searchers found Lyudmila Dubinaina, Nikolai Thibeaux-Brignoles, Semyon Zolotaryov, and Alexander Kolevatov at the bottom of a ravine. A small stream of water was flowing around their bodies. While the first bodies had been found in strange circumstances, the final 4 were in a condition that was nothing short of brutal. There was no question that something violent and unthinkable had happened to them. Nikolai Thibeaux-Brignoles had not died from hypothermia. Instead, his skull had been caved in. Lyudmila Dubinaina, the youngest member of the group, had sustained severe chest trauma, leaving her with broken ribs and other injuries. She was 20 years old at the time. The oldest member of the expedition, 38-year-old Semyon Zolotaryov, had injuries that almost perfectly matched Dubinaina's. All 3 of these young people had died from their injuries, not from the cold. Though brutal, these injuries weren't the worst of it, not by a long shot. Young Lyudmila's eyes and tongue were missing. Zolotaryov's eyes had also been removed. As for Alexander Kolevatov, his neck had been hideously twisted, and his eyebrows somehow removed. Though this sounds like the work of a Dahmer-esque serial killer, one of the examining doctors suggested that the injuries seemed to have been caused by a powerful blast of some sort. No one could come up with a rational explanation for the bizarre and brutal clues found at the site. So, after months of examining the bodies and combing the area for evidence, the government declared the cause of death to be an insurmountable force of nature. At this point, the investigation into the Dyatlov Pass incident was closed. All the evidence was locked away and declared top secret, but nothing could stop people from theorizing about the strange incident. In fact, the government secrecy only served to fuel the flames of conspiracy theorizing. Many experts settled on the idea that an avalanche had caused their deaths. However, an examination of the terrain revealed that this was highly unlikely. The avalanche theory was quickly discarded as the patterning of the snow around the tent just did not match what you'd see after an avalanche. With each abandoned theory came dozens more, but, all the while, the Soviet government remained tight-lipped. With no access to the records, conspiracy theorists went wild, suggesting it might have been a failed alien abduction, a Yeti attack, or some kind of bizarre gravitational anomaly. A Russian journalist named Svetlana OSS suggested that hunters high on mushrooms may have killed the hikers. Meanwhile, a Russian news station suggested that tensions within the group erupted, leading one, or some, of them to attack the others. The problem with all these theories is that not one of them could account for all the evidence. The coroner made it clear that no human being, no matter how strong, was capable of inflicting the damage he found on their deeply traumatized bodies. Many conspiracy theories center around the concept that the Soviet government may have been conducting tests in the remote Ural Mountains. From parachute mines to radiological weapons, it's possible that the expedition simply stumbled into the wrong place at the worst possible time. The Cold War was well underway in 1959, so it isn't beyond the scope of reason to suspect that the Russian government may have been using Dead Mountain for weapons testing. As you may recall, unusually high levels of radiation were found around the torn tent. Radioactive weapons might also explain the burns found on some of the victims. Of course, they may also have burned their hands while lighting and managing their fire. Meanwhile, the radiation may have been from the thorium found in the group's gas lanterns. This left parachute mines as the most likely military explanation. Indeed, friend of the group Yuri Yudin was a vocal proponent of this theory. Finally, we arrive back in the 21st century, where the new team of investigators has been using advanced computer simulations to reenact the events that befell the DYATLOV expedition. Snow experts, geotechnical engineers, and other relevant professionals used the new evidence gained to develop a fresh take on an old theory. Though Dead Mountain's incline was not steep enough for a normal avalanche to occur, there was another possibility to explore. It's possible that the DYATLOV group dug into the side of the slope to protect their camp from the cold and harsh winds. This may have destabilized a layer of snow, creating a slab large enough to crush them once it dislodged. This is where Frozen comes into the picture. Disney gave the researchers access to the animation codes they used to make realistic snow scenes in Frozen. These codes enabled them to create a simulation of the slab avalanche, confirming that it would have hit with the force of a four-wheel drive. Though rare, snow slabs are known to occur in the region. Indeed, the researchers found evidence of 2 slab avalanches on Death Mountain in the early 2020s, adding support to their theory. The theory could also explain why the hikers ripped their tent open and fled without getting dressed. It may also explain the branches torn from the tree. Perhaps they were simply trying to get a fire going to stay warm. As for the missing body parts, the scientists theorized that wild animals may have scavenged their bodies. In a word, no. Many scientists insist that the slope simply isn't steep enough for such an avalanche to occur. Others add that no trekker in their mind would leave a tent in Siberia wearing only their underwear. The scientists behind this new theory do admit that the slope is only just steep enough to allow for the possibility of a slab avalanche. However, they're convinced that their theory is sound. For many others, however, the fate of the DYATLOV expedition will forever remain an enigma.